And at Army football practice, I had a chance to talk to Army offensive coordinator Cody Worley. Coach, a very solid win down in Florida Atlantic, 405 yards rushing, had a touchdown pass from Bryson Daly. And it seemed like you had the offense in sync. What was your assessment of the performance?
Well, I think, one, the environment, going on the road, first American Athletic Conference game on the road. You know, the heat, we didn't allow that to affect us. I was really proud of how the guys came out. Thought we had a really fast start, and we were able to overcome some third downs early on in the game that were critical on the first drive, and then able to finish that after an explosion play to Noah, and then Kanye was able to finish in the end zone. And then we come back on the second drive, and like you said, Bryson hits the touchdown pass to Casey Reynolds. So I was really proud of the start. Proud of how we finished, but there were lapses with that throughout the game that we left a lot out there. And that was the biggest thing coming into the bye week and coming into this week of preparation. Is we can't have pre-snap penalties. We can't have the 15-yard penalties. Whether they're suspect or not, they got called. So we got to do a good job of coaching those fundamentals. But we can't have pre-snap penalties to get us off track. We can't have drops. And we've got to execute better. And, you know, the drive before the half, we put the ball on the ground. That's uncharacteristic. Hopefully, I think we learn from those mistakes. But those are things that we can control that have nothing to do with the opponent. But I was really pleased with how we started, pleased with the first drive of the second half, at least coming out and being able to put points on the board. And then I was pleased with how we finished.
And, Court, you mentioned Noah Short. He had 160 yards rushing, average 14 a carry. His game has really just moved up a notch this year. He's accelerating so well. What do you see? What have you been working with him on?
Well, I think just in general, the growth that he's shown positionally, you know, moving over from defense, moving over to offense last year, and really becoming a focal point of what we do and how we operate and finding ways to get him the ball on the perimeter and doing different things and being creative in how we can get him the football because, you know, he is an explosive guy when he has the ball in his hands. And we've got to continue to find ways to get him the ball. But I'm really excited about his growth. He comes to work in practice. You can see it in practice. It shows up in the game. How he practices is a direct reflection of him on game day. You know, he practices as hard as anybody, and it shows up with his playmaking ability and finding ways to get him in space. And we got to continue to do those things and be creative. But I'm really excited about Noah's growth and how he's progressed.
And just looking at your offensive line with Connor Finucane back at tackle and Lucas Scott we talked to today, Pablo Peo Generali, and of course Brady Small and Bill Katsianis. How is it that line, how is it working together? How are they growing?
They're actually, you know, you look at some of the cycles that we've had and guys playing different positions. What I've been really pleased with is, you know, whatever the rotation is, the five guys in the game, they have chemistry, you know, and it's when you have the flexibility of being able to sub guys and do different things and keep them fresh, I think that's critically important to our success. They're the engine to the offense, and they go as we go. So I've been really pleased with their progression as a unit, really pleased with our depth at that position, and really happy with how they played for the most part this past weekend. You know, anytime you're able to control the clock and run the football, it's a direct reflection of those guys. And they set the tone early and often. They have to continue that. A huge task this week. We're playing the best D-line that we've played all year for sure. So they'll be tasked with that, and I think they'll come they've come in practice with that urgency. But I'm really excited about their growth and potential, and they'll continue to get better week to week.
Any colleagues there online?
Joe, go ahead on Zoom.
Hey, Coach Worley, Joe, I come from QBK. You talked a little bit about the size of the Rice D-line. We talked with Coach Bunkin earlier today. He talked about how good their front seven is. I don't even think you were on staff the last time Rice came to Mikey, but they held Army's offense to 230 yards rushing, which, by Army standards is pretty low. They have a lot of seniors on their defense. What challenges does the Rice D present for your offense?
Well, I think you said it. Their size and physicality and their culture. I have a ton of respect for Coach Bloomgren and how he does things and how he operates. So those guys they'll be ready to play. They've had staff continuity over the years. Defensive coordinator's been there since 2018. Head coach's been there as well. So they have really good staff continuity. They're really well coached. They play really hard, and those guys up front that's their bread and butter. That's their heart and soul of their defense. And those guys, when they're playing and they're on their game, they're really hard to move and really hard to run the football. So we have a huge task at hand and a huge challenge for our guys. And hopefully we can mix up enough things to keep those guys honest. But we have a huge challenge this week with their front seven for sure.
So in the first two games, you guys have completed some very timely passes, including the touchdown to Casey Reynolds against Florida Atlantic. Do you think that'll be key to kind of keeping Rice's defense honest, mixing in some well-timed pass plays?
I think anytime you can do that, it's good versus any opponent. And again, just like we've talked about in previous weeks, we left some out there. We had a drop on second down. And then we had a drop on the third down touchdown pass. Luckily, we were bailed out again with an awesome play with a fake field goal.
Right.
But we've got to capitalize on those things. And our guys understand the importance and the things that we're going to have access to in the pass game. And we've got to do a better job of connecting and being more efficient when we have those opportunities. So I think, like always, the game plan is what it is. And we've got to find ways to keep them honest and find ways to move the ball down the field. And whatever that looks like, we have to do in our scheme to be successful. Hopefully there's opportunities in every facet. We'll see as the game goes on. But we've got to connect when we do those things. And that's been a focal point, is just throwing and catching, protecting, and maximizing those opportunities when they arise.
And last question for you. The fullback rotation looks like it's gone pretty well with Kanye Udo and Hayden Reed, and even throwing Jake Rendina in there a little bit. And I know Hayden plays some slot as well. Can you talk about kind of the continuity between that group and how that's allowed you to really be effective with all three phases of the option?
Yeah, I think, one thing, I was really proud of how Kanye responded after putting the ball on the ground. Obviously, I think he learned his lesson of sitting over there and watching for a while. But then he came back in the game and he did exactly what he needed to do. And I trust him. He made a mistake. Kid made a really good play, but it was a fundamental error by Kanye, something he can completely control. Had the ball in the wrong arm and didn't finish with two. So those are things that we stress. It gets stressed to every ball carrier, every day, every drill. So I think he learned from that. I hope that his teammates learn from that as well, because that's something that can't happen, especially in that situation. But I was really proud how he responded. Proud of how Hayden came in and kind of toted it with the absence of Kanye. And then really excited about Jake. He didn't play a ton against Florida Atlantic, but he's a guy that's going to continue to show up and be in the mix. So I feel really good about those three and them continuing to have growth, get better from week to week, and hang our hat on the inside run game, power run game with those guys. I feel good about.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Hey, Cody, Ken McMillan from The Record.
Hey, Ken, how are you?
Good, thank you. Cody, I came in a few minutes late, and I know Kenny asked you about Noah Short. My question is, are you in any way surprised at him being able to make that transition? Is that easy for the move that he made?
I wouldn't say it's easy, no. I think the position he plays is a really difficult position because he has to do a lot of things. We're very multiple in our formations and a lot of things that we ask him to do. So for him to have the success that he's had is a tribute to his work. I think he's really well coached. I think Dane Romero does a phenomenal job with those guys. So he's really well coached. He takes coaching. He practices. And there's one thing that I talked about earlier. The way he practices, it shows up on game day. He puts himself in a game-like situation every rep that he takes in practice. And that's how he's been able to really grasp what we're trying to do and have success. And it shows up during the week. It's no surprise on game day when he makes the plays that he's made because we've seen it happen during the week of practice. So just really proud with his growth, and he'll continue to get better week to week. But really excited about him and how he's continued to work and really that group in general.
Is it his speed, his timing, or his ability to see holes that has made him what he is?
I think one thing that we stress with him is obviously is maximizing runs. I think he's gotten better at understanding, some of those long runs, he wished that he had a better angle or took a better angle, and it would have been even more of a big play. He didn't trust Bryson on the block down the field. If he'd have stayed down the sideline, he probably put that in the end zone. But he's continuing to learn with the ball, without the ball. I think his play without the ball is improved. We ran several plays at him where he was lead blocker. So I've been impressed with that, but I think his speed pops out. He's one of the more dynamic guys that we have, and especially when the ball's in his hands in the open field. So I definitely think he utilizes his speed as a weapon, and he'll continue to get better with maximizing runs and playing without the ball as well.
Cody, I'm sure Rice knows all about him by now. If they manage to slow him down, stop him on the outside, what do you think that does for your interior attack?
I think anytime you can be balanced with your attack and your approach, it forces them to defend everything. And when you get the outside game running, or you get the inside game running, or you're able to pitch and catch, and you can get the quarterback running, anytime that you can force them to defend all of the aspects of the offense, I think it opens up and gives you access to things. I think, that they're obviously gonna pinpoint him and have a red dot on him, but that's where we've got to be creative in the things that we do. And then hopefully that opens up other aspects if they're really focusing on him. But anytime, again, if we can be balanced and continue to have production at the quarterback position, the running back position, the slot position, and involve the wide receivers, I think you have a chance to keep them off guard. And we'll continue to try to do that with every game plan that we have. And then we'll see really how they're defending us, what we have access to.
Crossing our fingers, the offense and defense have both played relatively injury-free, and you guys have rolled out a consistent lineup all these weeks. How advantageous is it to have the ones and twos just running out there all the time without having to make a lot of changes?
Well, anytime that you can get through a game healthy is a positive, and that's been huge the first 2 weeks. And keeping them healthy and maximizing practice time and practice reps has been critically important and been a focal point of what we do. Coach Munkin, Coach Hughes, our entire staff, I think has done a great job of being who we are, practicing really hard, but also taking care of them as well. So anytime that you can get out of a game injury-free, knock on wood after your comment, obviously, but that's a huge positive. And then we've got to continue to develop depth because it's a long season and games are long and the season's long, and we've got to be able to have the next guy up mentality, and that's how it's always been around here, and it'll continue to be that way. So we've got to continue to build depth at every position so those guys can come in and we don't skip a beat.
Last thing, I know that the ones and twos have been pretty consistent on the charts we're getting. Are there any players, though, in your eyes, who are kind of making a move down below, some names we haven't heard?
I think it's really the same guys. Even our twos, I think, guys like Samari Howard, he played a significant amount against Florida Atlantic. He's a guy that I think is going to continue to get better, and he's multi-positional. He can play either slot position and be really successful. So I'm excited about him. And then just the continued growth of Parker Pulaski at the tight end position. I think he's a really talented player, just doesn't have a lot of reps yet. So continuing to get him work and get him in the mix. And then those guys up front, just rotating those guys and having a rotation at the running back position with Hayden, with Kanye, with Jake Rendina. And then, obviously at every position we've rotated at the wide receiver position as well. But just continuing to develop those guys and have growth. And when your number's called, you got to be able to do your job. And they know that. They know whoever's in the game, they've got to be able to do their job and execute. So we'll continue to build depth, continue to build around those guys that have played a significant amount, and continue to get better week to week.
You're feeling good about the threes and fours?
I think our depth is good. I really do. I think I feel good about those guys. When Jake Rendina is your third running back, in a sense, I think you feel really good about that. And then the depth is continuing to grow at other positions as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, Cody, appreciate the time.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Coach. You're awesome.
Yep.